You wake up every morning checking your bank account, hoping something has changed. You scroll through social media, watching people half your age flaunting wealth you can only dream of. And deep down, in that quiet moment before the day begins, you wonder if you'll ever break free from this invisible cage that keeps you exactly where you are. I am Solomon, and I've watched this same pattern destroy more lives than wars and plagues combined. The desperate chase for money while remaining blind to the game that actually creates wealth. You see, most people are playing checkers, while the elite are playing chess on a board you don't even know exists. Tonight, you're going to discover why every financial strategy you've tried has failed. Not because you lack intelligence or determination, but because you've been following rules written by people who never intended for you to win. Machiavelli understood something that separates the powerful from the powerless. True wealth isn't built through motivation or positive thinking. It's architected through invisible systems that work while you sleep. What I'm about to share will transform you from someone who reacts to money into someone who controls it, from someone who hopes for opportunities into someone who creates them. This isn't about getting rich quick. This is about becoming the type of person wealth flows toward naturally and inevitably. But understand this. Once you see these 10 rules, you cannot unsee them. Once you understand how the invisible game really works, you'll never look at success the same way again. You'll realize that every day you delay is another day. The gap widens between you and the life you were meant to live. If you're ready to stop being a spectator in your own financial life and start becoming the architect of your wealth, then subscribe now. Because what comes next will either change everything for you, or you'll remain exactly where you've always been. The choice, as always, is yours. Number 1, the illusion of the social game. You wake up every morning and immediately check your phone. Social media notifications, news alerts, messages from people who drain your energy. And in that first moment of consciousness, you've already surrendered your power to a system designed to keep you exactly where you are. You believe you're participating in life, but you're merely following a script written by architects you'll never meet. The greatest deception of our time is not political or religious. It's the illusion that the game you see is the only game being played. While you chase visible success, measure yourself against your neighbor's cars, and celebrate small financial victories on platforms designed to harvest your attention, there exists a parallel universe of power that operates in complete silence. Think of society as a theater with 2 stages. On the main stage, under bright lights, millions of people perform the dance of modern ambition. They showcase their achievements, their struggles, their hopes and fears. They believe this performance matters. They compete for applause, recognition, market share in industries that were designed to keep them busy, not wealthy. Meanwhile, on the hidden stage, in the shadows behind the curtain, a small group of architects quietly rearrange the props, change the script, and determine which performances will succeed and which will fail. I once knew a man who spent 30 years climbing what he believed was the ladder of success. He worked 16-hour days, earned multiple degrees, built what appeared to be a thriving business. He measured his progress against his peers and felt victorious when he surpassed them. But he never questioned who built the ladder, who determined its destination, or why the ladder seemed to grow taller each time he climbed higher. He was playing their game by their rules, and even his victories kept him imprisoned in their system. The Rothschild family understood this principle before most countries existed. While kings fought public wars for visible territories, the Rothschilds built an invisible empire through information networks and financial instruments that kings couldn't even comprehend. They never sought the crown because they discovered something more powerful than ruling a kingdom. They learned to rule the system that creates kingdoms. They became the architects of the game itself. Here is the shift that changes everything. The moment you realize that every financial struggle you've experienced, every limitation you've accepted, every goal that seemed just out of reach, has been the result of playing a rigged game, you can finally step off that stage. You stop measuring success by the metrics they created. You stop chasing the rewards they dangle. You stop participating in their theater of artificial scarcity. True wealth isn't built by getting better at their game. It's built by recognizing that their game is a distraction from the real game. While others fight for scraps at the visible table, you learn to see the invisible table where the real decisions are made. You understand that the most powerful people in the world are not the ones giving speeches or trending on social media. They're the ones whose names you've never heard, whose faces you've never seen, whose influence shapes your reality from the shadows. The social game is designed to make you believe that your worth depends on external validation, that your success requires their permission, that your wealth must be earned through their approved channels. But the invisible game operates on different principles entirely. It values silence over noise, influence over fame, systems over personalities, and legacy over lifestyle. When you finally see through the illusion, you realize that every day you spent playing their game was a day you could have been building your own. Every hour you invested in their success was an hour stolen from your sovereignty. Every dollar you spent chasing their definition of the good life was a dollar that could have purchased your freedom from their system entirely. The choice before you is simple but permanent. You can continue performing on their stage, competing for their rewards, living by their rules, and hoping they'll grant you a slightly better position in their hierarchy. Or you can disappear from their stage entirely and begin building something they can never touch, control, or destroy. Something invisible, something permanent, something entirely your own. Number 2, mastering the invisible system. You've been taught that success requires visibility. Show your work, share your journey, build your personal brand, network relentlessly. But every moment you spend in the spotlight is a moment you reveal your hand to competitors who prefer to remain hidden. Every post, every interview, every public appearance gives others the information they need to predict your moves, counter your strategies, and position themselves ahead of your next decision. The invisible system operates on the opposite principle. Power increases in proportion to invisibility. The more hidden your influence, the more absolute your control. This isn't about secrecy for its own sake. It's about understanding that true power doesn't announce itself because it doesn't need to. It simply is. Consider the ocean. The surface churns with visible waves, dramatic and attention-grabbing. Boats navigate by these surface conditions, fighting against the turbulence, celebrating when they ride the peaks and struggling when they fall into the valleys. But the real power of the ocean lies in the deep currents, invisible from the surface, moving vast amounts of water across continents with unstoppable force. These currents shape weather patterns, determine the fate of ships, and influence the entire planet. Yet they remain completely hidden from view. I remember a businessman who built his empire in complete silence. While his competitors held press conferences to announce new ventures, he quietly acquired the suppliers those ventures would need. While they celebrated million-dollar deals in trade publications, he purchased the patents their future innovations would require. While they built personal brands and thought leadership platforms, he built distribution networks that would make their products irrelevant. In 20 years, he never gave a single interview, never appeared at an industry conference, never even had a public biography. Yet when the industry transformed, it transformed according to his vision, using his resources, flowing through his channels. His competitors never saw him coming because he was never there to see. This is the architecture of invisible power. Instead of trying to dominate the crowd, you learn to control the environment in which the crowd operates. Instead of being the loudest voice in the room, you become the one who decides what topics are discussed. Instead of winning the argument, you shape the framework within which arguments take place. The shift happens when you realize that every minute spent building your public profile is a minute not spent building actual power. Every piece of information you share publicly is a piece of intelligence you've handed to your competition. Every moment you spend seeking recognition is a moment you could have spent securing advantage. Real power is structural, not personal. It doesn't depend on your charisma, your reputation, or your network. It depends on systems you control, resources you own, and processes you've designed. Personal power disappears when you're not present. Structural power operates whether you're in the room or not, awake or asleep, healthy or sick, present or absent. The invisible system requires you to think in terms of architecture rather than performance. Instead of asking how to be more impressive, you ask how to be more essential. Instead of building a personal brand, you build infrastructure that others depend on. Instead of accumulating followers, you accumulate leverage points that shape entire industries. This means making different choices with your time, money, and attention. While others invest in visibility, you invest in capability. While others build audiences, you build assets. While others seek influence through persuasion, you gain influence through indispensability. You become powerful not because people know who you are, but because they cannot succeed without systems you control. The invisible system rewards patience over speed, depth over breadth, substance over style. It requires you to think in decades rather than quarters, in systems rather than tactics, in principles rather than trends. It demands that you become comfortable with anonymous influence, satisfied with private victories, content with shaping the world from the shadows. Most people will never choose this path because it offers no immediate gratification, no social validation, no public recognition. It requires you to measure success by standards that only you can see, to find satisfaction in victories that only you will know about, to build monuments that will never bear your name. But for those who master it, the invisible system offers something that no amount of fame or public success can provide. It offers true autonomy, the freedom to operate according to your own rules, pursue your own agenda, and shape reality according to your own vision, all while remaining completely free from the constraints, expectations, and limitations that bind everyone who seeks power through visibility. Number 3, hiding intentions behind multiple masks. Every morning, you put on the same face and wonder why the world treats you predictably. You pride yourself on authenticity, on being genuine, on letting people see the real you. But what you call authenticity, the powerful call vulnerability. What you call being genuine, they call being naive. What you call openness, they recognize as weakness ready to be exploited. The strategic mind understands that identity is not fixed. It's fluid, adaptive, and purpose-driven. The person you are with your family serves a different function than the person you are in business negotiations. The version of yourself that appears in social settings shouldn't be the same version that makes financial decisions. Yet most people wear the same mask everywhere, revealing everything, protecting nothing. Think of a diamond cutter examining a precious stone. He doesn't reveal the true value of what he holds. He doesn't share his assessment with competing buyers. He doesn't announce his cutting strategy to the room. Instead, he presents different facets of his expertise depending on who needs to see what. To the seller, he reveals just enough appreciation to maintain interest, but never enough to inflate the price. To his assistants, he shares technical knowledge but never the full picture of his vision. To his clients, he displays confidence and capability, but never his moments of uncertainty or discovery. There was a negotiator I observed who mastered this art completely. In business meetings, he appeared methodical and data-driven, armed with spreadsheets and conservative projections. His competitors saw him as predictable, analytical, risk-averse. But in private investor gatherings, this same man transformed into a visionary, painting bold pictures of market transformation and revolutionary opportunities. To his employees, He was a supportive mentor focused on their development and growth. To industry journalists, he positioned himself as a thoughtful expert concerned with market stability and ethical practices. Each mask was authentic to its context, but none revealed his complete identity or ultimate intentions. This wasn't deception. This was strategy. Each audience received the version of him that would produce the optimal outcome for that specific interaction. He understood that showing everything to everyone dilutes your power in every relationship. People can only leverage what they can predict, manipulate what they understand, and destroy what they can fully see. The transformation begins when you realize that total transparency is not a virtue, but a strategic error. Every piece of information you reveal becomes a tool others can use to anticipate your moves, counter your strategies, or position themselves advantageously for your next decision. Your emotions, your plans, your fears, your desires, when laid bare, become weapons in the hands of those who prefer to keep their own intentions hidden. Mastering multiple masks requires you to identify the core self that must remain protected at all costs. This isn't the self you share with the world. This is the self that contains your deepest values, your ultimate goals, your genuine fears, and your true assessment of everyone around you. This protected self makes the real decisions, sets the actual agenda, and determines which mask should be worn in each situation. The practical application is immediate and measurable. In business settings, you reveal competence and reliability, but never desperation or overconfidence. In social situations, you display enough personality to be engaging, but never enough vulnerability to be manipulated. In family contexts, you provide appropriate support and affection, but maintain boundaries that preserve your ability to make necessary difficult decisions. This approach requires you to become a student of what each situation demands and what each person needs to see to produce your desired outcome. The investor needs to see confidence and vision. The employee needs to see stability and fairness. The competitor needs to see enough capability to earn respect, but never enough to trigger destructive competition. The client needs to see expertise and value, but never enough desperation to justify negotiating down your price. Most people fear this approach because they've been taught that it's somehow dishonest or manipulative. But consider the alternative. Total authenticity in all contexts means that your emotional state determines your effectiveness, your moods shape your negotiations, and your personal insecurities undermine your professional authority. It means that everyone around you has access to information they can use to predict, influence, or defeat you. The powerful understand that authenticity is a luxury they cannot afford and a weakness they cannot indulge. They remain authentic to their core values and ultimate objectives while being strategically adaptive in how those values and objectives are pursued and presented. When you master multiple masks, you discover something remarkable. People begin to treat you with more respect, not because they know you better, but because they know you less. Relationships become more productive, not because they're more intimate, but because they're more purposeful. Your influence increases, not because you're more transparent, but because you've become more strategic about what you reveal and when you reveal it. The mask isn't about becoming someone you're not. It's about becoming more deliberately yourself, choosing consciously how much of yourself each situation deserves to see, and protecting the parts of yourself that must remain untouchable if you're going to accomplish what you were born to accomplish. Number 4, silence as a weapon of power. You talk too much. You share your plans before they're ready, your dreams before they're protected, your struggles before you've found solutions. You believe that communication builds connection, that openness creates trust, that sharing your journey inspires others. But every word you speak is information you can never reclaim, strategy you can never surprise anyone with again, advantage you've voluntarily surrendered to those who prefer to listen while revealing nothing themselves. Silence is not the absence of communication. It's the most sophisticated form of communication available to the strategic mind. When you speak, you reveal your position. When you remain silent, others reveal theirs. When you ask questions, you gather intelligence. When you provide answers, you give intelligence away. The person who speaks the least in any interaction is often the person gathering the most information, maintaining the most options, and preserving the most power. Consider the master chess player facing a novice opponent. The novice announces every strategy, explains every move, shares every concern about the game's progression. He believes this makes him a good sport, an engaging opponent, someone worthy of respect and friendship. The master listens carefully, nods appropriately, asks clarifying questions. He never reveals his strategy, never explains his moves, never shares his assessment of how the game is progressing. To the outside observer, the master might seem cold or distant. But every word the novice speaks gives the master additional information he can use to secure victory. I once witnessed a negotiation between two very different businessmen. The first arrived with presentations, charts, detailed explanations of his position, passionate arguments about market conditions, and emotional appeals about the importance of reaching an agreement. He spoke for nearly an hour, covering every aspect of why the deal would benefit both parties, what risks he was willing to accept, and what terms he absolutely had to make the agreement work. The second man listened carefully, asked 3 precise questions, and said almost nothing else. When the first man finished his presentation, he felt confident that he had made a compelling case and built good rapport with his potential partner. The second man had learned everything he needed to know. He understood exactly how badly the first man needed this deal, precisely which terms were truly non-negotiable versus which ones were negotiating positions, and exactly how much financial pressure the first man was under based on the urgency and emotional intensity of his presentation. The deal was concluded in 15 minutes, but not on the terms the first man had hoped for. The shift occurs when you realize that the world is hungry for information and starved for mystery. Everyone wants to know what you're thinking, what you're planning, how you're feeling, what you're worried about. This hunger for information isn't born from care or concern. It's born from the unconscious desire to predict and potentially control your next moves. Every answer you provide satisfies their hunger while weakening your position. Strategic silence operates on multiple levels simultaneously. On the tactical level, it prevents you from revealing information that could be used against you in negotiations, competitions, or conflicts. On the psychological level, it forces others to fill the silence with their own words, often revealing far more than they intended. On the social level, it creates an aura of depth and substance that makes others assume you know more than you're saying. This doesn't mean becoming antisocial or mysterious for its own sake. It means becoming deliberate about when silence serves your objectives better than speech. In business meetings, let others present their positions first. In negotiations, ask questions that reveal their priorities while keeping yours hidden. In social situations, listen more than you speak and watch how much others reveal when they're trying to fill comfortable silence. The practical application requires you to recognize the difference between information gathering and information sharing. When someone asks about your plans, your response should gather information about why they want to know rather than providing the information they're seeking. When someone shares their struggles, your questions should help you understand their situation completely, while revealing nothing about whether you face similar challenges. Silence also functions as a filter for relationships and opportunities. People who are uncomfortable with your silence often have reasons for wanting access to your thoughts and plans that don't serve your best interests. Those who can be comfortable with mystery, who can respect boundaries, who don't need to know everything about you to treat you with respect, these are the people worthy of your time and consideration. The most powerful aspect of strategic silence is how it changes the way others perceive and treat you. When you speak less and listen more, people begin to assume you know things they don't. When you ask questions instead of providing answers, they assume you're testing their knowledge rather than lacking your own. When you remain calm and quiet in situations that cause others to become emotional and talkative, they assume you have resources and options they don't possess. Mastering silence as a weapon requires you to become comfortable with being misunderstood, comfortable with others making assumptions about your knowledge or capabilities, comfortable with maintaining mystery even when it would be easier to explain yourself. It requires you to find satisfaction in private knowledge, private victories, and private understanding of situations that others are still trying to figure out. In a world where everyone is broadcasting, the person who receives becomes powerful. In a culture where everyone is explaining, the person who questions gains advantage. In an environment where everyone reveals everything, the person who protects information becomes untouchable. Number 5, absolute control of time. You live by other people's schedules. Your calendar fills with meetings you didn't request, obligations you didn't choose, and priorities determined by people whose agenda doesn't include your success. You react to emails immediately, answer calls during focused work, and interrupt important tasks to handle urgent matters that aren't actually important. You confuse being busy with being productive, motion with progress, reaction with action. Time is the only resource that cannot be recovered, recycled, or replaced. Every minute you spend responding to other people's priorities is a minute stolen from building your own empire. Every hour you surrender to reactive work is an hour that could have been invested in creating systems that eliminate the need for reactive work entirely. Every day you live according to schedules designed by others is a day you postpone taking control of your own destiny. The strategic mind treats time as a battlefield where every minute is territory to be conquered, defended, and optimized. This isn't about productivity techniques or time management apps. This is about understanding that how you structure time reveals whether you're building an empire or serving someone else's. Imagine two generals preparing for the same battle. The first general reacts to intelligence reports as they arrive, responds to enemy movements as they happen, and makes tactical decisions based on immediate circumstances. His army moves frantically, always responding to the enemy's initiative, always one step behind the developing situation. The second general studies the terrain in advance, anticipates enemy strategies, and prepares multiple scenarios before the battle begins. When intelligence arrives, it either confirms his preparations or triggers pre-planned responses. His army moves with purpose and precision, turning the enemy's reactions into predictable patterns he can exploit. Your relationship with time determines which general you resemble. Most people operate like the reactive general, allowing circumstances, other people's requests, and immediate pressures to determine how their most valuable resource gets allocated. The powerful operate like the strategic general, designing their days in advance, creating systems that filter demands on their time, and structuring their environment so that important work happens regardless of what urgent matters arise. I once studied a businessman who transformed a failing company into an industry leader by completely restructuring his relationship with time. He identified the 3 activities that actually created value in his business and designed his entire day around protecting time for those activities. Everything else, no matter how urgent it seemed, was either delegated, automated, or eliminated entirely. His mornings were sacred, dedicated entirely to strategic thinking and planning. No meetings, no phone calls, no email checking, just pure focused time to analyze opportunities, identify problems, and design solutions. His afternoons were structured around high-value meetings that moved important projects forward. But these weren't typical meetings. They had clear agendas, specific outcomes, and time limits that were enforced ruthlessly. His evenings were reserved for learning, reading industry analysis, studying successful companies, and preparing for the next day's strategic work. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but within 2 years, his company had outperformed competitors that had been market leaders for decades. The difference wasn't superior products or better marketing. It was superior use of time, which created space for superior thinking, which led to superior decisions. This approach requires you to recognize the difference between urgent and important, between busy work and value creation, between being responsive and being strategic. Urgent matters demand immediate attention, but rarely contribute to long-term success. Important matters contribute to long-term success, but rarely demand immediate attention. The practical implementation means designing your ideal day in advance, and then protecting that design from the inevitable forces that will try to distort it. This includes creating specific times for strategic thinking, learning, planning, and execution. It means batching similar activities together rather than switching between different types of work throughout the day. It means creating systems that handle routine decisions automatically so that your mental energy remains available for important decisions. Most critically, it means learning to say no to opportunities, requests, and demands that don't align with your strategic priorities. Every yes to something unimportant is an automatic no to something that could change your life. Every minute you spend on other people's urgent matters is a minute unavailable for your own important work. The shift happens when you realize that time management isn't about doing more things faster. It's about doing fewer things with greater impact. It's about protecting your most valuable hours for your most valuable activities. It's about creating structure that serves your goals rather than responding to structure imposed by others. When you master absolute control of time, several things change simultaneously. Your work becomes more impactful because you're focusing on activities that actually create value. Your stress decreases because you're operating according to your own priorities rather than constantly reacting to external demands. Your results improve because consistent, focused effort on important activities produces exponentially better outcomes than scattered effort on urgent activities. But the most profound change is psychological. When you control your time completely, you begin to feel like the architect of your own life rather than a victim of circumstances. You stop feeling overwhelmed by demands and start feeling powerful about choices. You stop measuring success by how busy you are and start measuring it by how much progress you make toward objectives that actually matter. True power isn't about having more time. It's about having complete autonomy over how your time gets used. It's about designing days that serve your vision rather than serving everyone else's needs. It's about creating structure that amplifies your most important work rather than diluting it with everything else. Number 6, strategic relationship management. You maintain relationships that drain your energy, waste your time, and contribute nothing to your growth. You feel guilty about ending friendships that no longer serve any purpose. You continue investing emotional and financial resources in people who would never invest the same resources in you. You confuse loyalty with stupidity, kindness with weakness, and social obligation with strategic necessity. Every relationship in your life is either adding value or subtracting it. There is no neutral ground. Every person you maintain contact with is either contributing to your growth, learning, opportunities, and well-being, or they're consuming resources you could invest in relationships that actually matter. Every minute you spend with people who don't share your vision, support your goals, or challenge you to become better is a minute stolen from building relationships with people who do. The strategic mind approaches relationships like a portfolio manager approaches investments. Each relationship must justify its place in your life through measurable returns on the time, energy, and resources you invest. This doesn't mean treating people as objects or being coldly transactional. It means being honest about the reality that your life has limited capacity and unlimited demands on that capacity. Consider a master gardener tending to a limited plot of land. He plants seeds carefully, nurtures young plants with attention and resources, and expects each plant to contribute to the garden's overall health and productivity. When plants fail to thrive, when they consume resources without producing results, when they crowd out more valuable plants, the master gardener removes them without sentiment or apology. He understands that keeping failing plants out of misplaced kindness ultimately damages the entire garden. I once knew a woman who inherited a successful business and nearly destroyed it by maintaining relationships that should have been ended years earlier. She kept employees who were no longer productive because they had been loyal during difficult times. She continued partnerships with vendors who no longer offered competitive value because the relationships felt comfortable and familiar. She maintained friendships with people who consistently discouraged her ambitious plans because she didn't want to seem like success had changed her. Within 3 years, her business was struggling, her energy was depleted, and her opportunities were limited by the very relationships she thought she was protecting. The productive employees became frustrated with carrying unproductive colleagues. The competitive vendors stopped taking her seriously because she wouldn't make tough business decisions. The discouraging friends felt vindicated when her business problems confirmed their predictions about her unrealistic goals. The transformation began when she finally understood that loyalty to relationships that no longer serve their purpose isn't kindness. It's self-destruction disguised as virtue. She restructured her business relationships based on performance and potential rather than history and sentiment. She restructured her personal relationships based on mutual growth and support rather than habit and obligation. This doesn't mean becoming heartless or abandoning people who face temporary difficulties. It means distinguishing between temporary challenges that deserve support and permanent patterns that deserve termination. It means recognizing the difference between helping someone through a difficult period and enabling someone's ongoing dysfunction. Strategic relationship management requires you to regularly audit your relationship portfolio. Which relationships consistently energize you and which ones consistently drain you? Which people challenge you to grow and which ones encourage you to settle? Which connections open new opportunities and which ones trap you in old patterns? The practical application means creating different categories for different types of relationships and managing each category according to appropriate standards. Professional relationships should be evaluated based on mutual value creation, shared goals, and complementary strengths. Personal relationships should be assessed based on mutual respect, emotional support, and shared vision for growth. But the most difficult category involves relationships that were valuable in previous seasons of your life, but no longer fit your current trajectory. The high school friends who still live in your hometown and can't understand your ambition. The college roommate who views every career decision as selling out. The family members who love you but consistently discourage your biggest dreams. These relationships require the most careful handling because they often involve genuine affection combined with fundamental misalignment. The strategic approach involves gradually reducing the time and emotional energy you invest in these relationships while maintaining basic courtesy and respect. You don't need to have dramatic confrontations or deliver harsh explanations. You simply redirect your limited relationship resources toward connections that actually support the person you're becoming. The most profound realization is that maintaining relationships that don't serve your growth isn't just bad for you. It's bad for them. When you remain connected to people whose values, goals, and standards don't align with yours, you enable their stagnation just as they limit your progress. True kindness sometimes requires creating space for people to find relationships that actually fit their level of ambition and commitment. When you master strategic relationship management, your entire social environment becomes a force multiplier rather than a limiting factor. The people around you reinforce your highest standards rather than accommodating your lowest impulses. Your relationships become sources of energy, opportunity, and growth, rather than drains on your resources and obstacles to your progress. This approach requires courage because it means disappointing some people in the short term to honor your long-term vision. It requires wisdom because it means distinguishing between temporary difficulties that deserve patience and permanent patterns that require distance. But most importantly, it requires recognizing that your relationship choices determine whether you're surrounded by forces that lift you up or hold you back, and that choosing wisely isn't selfish. It's essential. Number 7, complete control of emotions. Your emotions control your decisions. When you feel angry, you make angry choices. When you feel fearful, you make fearful choices. When you feel excited, you make impulsive choices. When you feel disappointed, you make desperate choices. Your emotional state determines your strategy, your reactions shape your reputation, and your feelings dictate your financial future. You've surrendered the most important decisions of your life to the least reliable part of your personality. Emotions are information, not instructions. They provide data about your internal state and external circumstances, but they should never be allowed to determine your response to that information. The strategic mind treats emotions like weather reports, useful for planning, irrelevant for decision-making. You don't cancel important meetings because you feel sad. You don't make major investments because you feel optimistic. You don't end valuable relationships because you feel frustrated. The powerful understand that emotional control isn't about suppressing feelings or becoming robotic. It's about creating separation between what you feel and what you do, between your internal experience and your external actions, between your emotional reactions and your strategic responses. Think of a skilled surgeon facing a life-threatening operation. During the procedure, he might feel anxiety about the patient's condition, frustration with unexpected complications, or sadness about the family's situation. But none of these emotions influences his surgical technique, his decision-making process, or his focus on the task at hand. His emotions provide information about the stakes and complexity of the situation, but his training, experience, and strategic thinking determine every move he makes. I once observed a negotiation where one participant lost $1 million opportunity because he couldn't control his emotional reactions. When the other party made an initial offer that seemed insulting, he became visibly angry and responded with equally unreasonable counterdemands. When they questioned some of his assumptions, he became defensive and started justifying his position with increasing intensity. When they remained calm while he became emotional, they gained psychological advantage that they leveraged throughout the rest of the negotiation. The other participant, meanwhile, remained completely composed regardless of what was offered or how it was presented. When faced with unreasonable demands, he asked clarifying questions rather than expressing outrage. When his own proposals were rejected, he explored the reasons behind the rejection rather than taking it personally. When tensions rose, his calm presence actually de-escalated the situation and created space for productive discussion. The emotional participant revealed his desperation, his pressure points, and his negotiating limits through his reactions. The controlled participant gathered information, maintained leverage, and ultimately secured terms that exceeded his original objectives. The transformation begins when you recognize that emotional reactions are choices, not reflexes. Between every trigger and every response, there exists a moment of choice. Most people experience this moment unconsciously and react automatically. The strategic mind expands this moment consciously and responds deliberately. This requires developing what I call emotional aikido. Instead of fighting against emotions or being controlled by them, you learn to redirect their energy toward productive outcomes. Anger becomes fuel for focused action rather than destructive reaction. Fear becomes motivation for thorough preparation rather than paralysis or avoidance. Disappointment becomes information about what needs to be adjusted rather than evidence that you should quit. The practical application means creating systems that prevent emotional decisions during emotional moments. When you feel angry, you have a protocol that delays any significant responses until the anger subsides, and you can think strategically about the situation. When you feel fearful, you have a process that channels that energy into research, planning, and preparation rather than avoidance or panic. This also means learning to recognize emotional manipulation from others and remaining unaffected by attempts to trigger your reactions. When someone tries to make you angry, they're attempting to reduce your decision-making capability and gain advantage in the interaction. When someone tries to make you feel guilty, they're trying to manipulate your behavior through emotional pressure rather than logical persuasion. The most advanced level of emotional control involves using your emotional state strategically. This doesn't mean being fake or manipulative. It means understanding how different emotional presentations affect different situations and choosing the appropriate emotional expression for your objectives. In negotiations, controlled intensity can communicate seriousness without revealing desperation. In leadership situations, calm confidence can inspire others even when you privately feel uncertain. In competitive environments, relaxed focus can unsettle opponents who expect you to show stress or concern. But the deepest level of this principle involves transforming your relationship with emotional discomfort entirely. Most people make poor decisions because they're trying to escape uncomfortable feelings rather than achieve important objectives. They quit difficult projects because frustration feels bad. They avoid challenging conversations because conflict feels uncomfortable. They settle for mediocre results because the effort required for excellence feels overwhelming. When you master complete emotional control, discomfort becomes irrelevant to decision-making. You choose strategies based on their likelihood of producing desired outcomes, regardless of how implementing those strategies makes you feel. You persist through difficult periods not because they feel good, but because persistence serves your long-term vision. You make tough choices not because they're emotionally satisfying, but because they're strategically necessary. This level of emotional mastery creates an almost insurmountable competitive advantage. While others are derailed by feelings, distracted by moods, and limited by emotional reactions, you remain focused on objectives, consistent in execution, and immune to the emotional turbulence that destroys most people's strategic thinking. The ultimate realization is that emotions, when properly controlled, become tools rather than obstacles. They provide valuable information about situations and people. They can be used strategically to influence outcomes and relationships. They can fuel sustained effort toward important goals, but they must never be allowed to determine strategy, dictate decisions, or control behavior. When you achieve complete emotional control, you discover something remarkable. Life doesn't become less emotional or less satisfying. It becomes more emotional and more satisfying because your emotions align with your success rather than undermining it. You feel proud of decisions made from strength rather than regretful of choices made from weakness. You experience the deep satisfaction that comes from building something lasting rather than the temporary relief that comes from avoiding discomfort. Number 8, manipulation of perception. You believe reality is what happens, but reality is what people believe happened. You think truth is objective, but truth is whatever framework people use to interpret events. You assume that facts speak for themselves, But facts are meaningless until someone provides context that tells people what those facts mean. You live in a world where perception creates reality, not the other way around, and until you understand this, you'll remain powerless to shape the world according to your vision. Every interaction you have is a battle for frame control. The frame is the invisible structure that determines what any situation means, what options are available, and what outcomes are possible. Whoever controls the frame controls the decision, regardless of the facts, regardless of the logic, regardless of who has the stronger position on paper. When you walk into a negotiation believing you need something from the other person, you've already lost. The frame is set. You are the supplicant, they are the benefactor, and the negotiation becomes about what you're willing to give up to get what you need. But when you walk into the same negotiation believing you're evaluating whether they deserve access to what you offer, everything changes. Same facts, same people, same room, but completely different reality. Consider two people interviewing for the same position. The first candidate believes he's competing against other applicants for the company's approval. He focuses on impressing the interviewer, emphasizing his qualifications, and hoping to be chosen. The second candidate believes the company is competing for his attention, alongside other opportunities he's considering. She focuses on evaluating whether the company deserves her talent, asking strategic questions about their challenges, and positioning herself as someone who might choose to solve their problems if the opportunity aligns with her objectives. I witnessed this dynamic during a business acquisition, where the smaller company completely controlled the negotiation despite being the target of acquisition. Instead of presenting themselves as a company seeking a buyer, they positioned themselves as a unique asset that might consider partnering with the right strategic investor. Instead of focusing on their need for capital, they emphasized the buyer's need for their specialized capabilities. Instead of negotiating from desperation, they negotiated from abundance. The acquiring company, despite having significantly more resources and leverage, found themselves competing to prove they were worthy of the partnership. The final terms were far more favorable to the smaller company than anyone had expected, not because they had superior legal counsel or negotiating tactics, but because they had established a frame that made their assets seem more valuable than the buyer's capital. The frame is set through subtle signals that most people don't consciously notice, but everyone subconsciously responds to. Your posture communicates whether you see yourself as equal or inferior. Your tone suggests whether you're asking for permission or offering an opportunity. Your questions reveal whether you're seeking approval or gathering information to make your own decision. But frame control goes deeper than individual interactions. It shapes entire relationships, careers, and industries. The person who defines what success looks like in any field controls how everyone else measures progress. The person who determines what problems are worth solving shapes how resources get allocated. The person who establishes what constitutes reasonable behavior influences what everyone else considers normal. This requires you to think architecturally about every significant interaction. Before entering any important conversation, you must decide what frame will serve your objectives, and then consistently reinforce that frame through everything you say and don't say, every question you ask and don't ask, every assumption you acknowledge and don't acknowledge. The practical application means preparing for important interactions by identifying the frame that serves your interests, and then designing your approach to establish and maintain that frame. If you're seeking investment, you don't position yourself as needing money. You position yourself as offering investors access to an opportunity that might generate returns. If you're applying for a job, you don't present yourself as needing employment. You present yourself as evaluating whether the role aligns with your career strategy. This isn't about deception or manipulation in the negative sense. It's about recognizing that every interaction already involves frame control, and the question isn't whether framing will occur but who will control it. You can either consciously establish frames that serve your objectives, or unconsciously accept frames that serve other people's objectives. The most sophisticated level of frame control involves shifting the frame gradually during extended interactions. You might begin by accepting the other person's initial frame to build rapport and gather information. Then you introduce alternative perspectives that subtly reshape how the situation gets interpreted. Finally, you establish your preferred frame so naturally that it feels like a mutual discovery rather than a unilateral imposition. Master practitioners can control frames so subtly that other people believe they develop the framework themselves. The ideas feel like their own insights. The conclusions seem like logical deductions from shared observations, and the final decisions appear to be collaborative rather than influenced. But the deepest level of this principle involves understanding that frame control isn't just a negotiating tactic. It's a way of shaping reality itself. The person who consistently controls frames in their interactions gradually shapes how everyone around them thinks about problems, opportunities, and possibilities. They become the source of perspective that others rely on to make sense of complex situations. When you master the manipulation of perception, you realize that most battles are won or lost before the first word is spoken. The person who establishes the frame within which any conflict gets resolved has already determined the range of possible outcomes. The person who defines what any opportunity means has already influenced who will pursue it and how they'll pursue it. This power comes with responsibility because frames, once established, take on lives of their own. The way you teach people to think about situations will influence how they approach similar situations long after your direct involvement ends. The perspectives you help people adopt become part of how they see the world and make decisions about their own lives. Frame control is ultimately about recognizing that reality is collaborative. What any situation means depends on the collective interpretation of everyone involved. By consciously participating in that interpretive process, by deliberately shaping the frameworks people use to understand their experiences, you gain the ability to influence outcomes at the most fundamental level possible. Number 9. Constant feeding of the mind. Your mind consumes entertainment while theirs consumes intelligence. You fill your mental space with distractions, opinions, and emotional content designed to make you feel something rather than think something. You scroll through social media feeds curated by algorithms that profit from your attention. You watch videos that confirm what you already believe rather than challenging you to consider what you might be wrong about. You read content that makes you feel informed without actually making you more capable. The strategic mind treats information consumption like an elite athlete treats nutrition. Every input is evaluated based on its ability to improve performance, enhance capability, or provide competitive advantage. There is no casual consumption, no mindless browsing, no passive entertainment that doesn't serve a specific purpose in developing greater understanding of how power operates, how markets function, or how human behavior can be predicted and influenced. Think of two generals preparing for the same battle. The first general spends his free time reading popular novels, watching dramatic entertainment, and engaging in conversations about sports and celebrity gossip. His mind is filled with emotional stories, temporary distractions, and information that has no bearing on his military effectiveness. The second general spends his time studying historical battles, analyzing political strategies, and learning about advances in technology that might affect future conflicts. Every piece of information he consumes either teaches him something about warfare, leadership, or strategic thinking. When the battle comes, both generals have access to the same resources and face the same challenges. But one general's mind is equipped with patterns, principles, and insights that can be applied to the current situation. The other general's mind is filled with content that provides no strategic value, when decisions must be made under pressure. I once studied a businessman who attributed his success to what he called intellectual warfare preparation. While his competitors relaxed with mainstream media, he read biographies of industrial pioneers. While they followed sports statistics, he analyzed economic indicators. While they debated political headlines, he studied demographic trends that would affect consumer behavior in the coming decades. This wasn't about appearing intellectual or developing impressive conversational topics. It was about continuously building a mental arsenal of patterns, principles, and strategies that could be deployed when opportunities or challenges arose. When market conditions changed, he recognized the patterns from historical precedents. When new technologies emerged, he understood their implications because he had studied how previous innovations transformed industries. When competitors made strategic moves, he could predict their next steps because he had analyzed similar situations in his reading. The transformation happens when you realize that your mind is either becoming more powerful every day or more cluttered every day. There is no mental neutral ground. Every book you read, every video you watch, every conversation you engage in is either adding to your strategic capability or diluting it with irrelevant information. This requires completely restructuring your information diet. Instead of reading news designed to trigger emotional reactions, you read analysis that helps you understand underlying economic and social forces. Instead of watching entertainment that provides temporary escape from reality, you study content that helps you understand reality more clearly. Instead of engaging in conversations about topics you cannot influence, you seek discussions with people who can teach you about topics that matter. The practical application means creating information sources that consistently provide strategic value rather than emotional satisfaction. This might include biographies of successful people in your field, analysis of economic trends that affect your industry, studies of psychological principles that influence human behavior, and historical accounts of how previous generations navigated similar challenges. But the most important shift involves changing from passive consumption to active extraction. Instead of reading for entertainment, you read to identify patterns that can be applied to current situations. Instead of learning facts, you look for principles that can guide decision-making. Instead of collecting information, you develop frameworks for organizing information in ways that enhance strategic thinking. This also means learning to recognize and avoid information that appears valuable, but actually weakens your mental clarity. Political content that makes you angry, but doesn't improve your ability to navigate political realities. Financial news that creates anxiety, but doesn't enhance your investment decision-making. Social commentary that confirms your existing beliefs, but doesn't challenge you to develop better ones. The most advanced practitioners treat their minds like intelligence agencies, constantly gathering information that provides strategic advantage while filtering out noise that distracts from important signals. They develop sources of information that their competitors don't know about. They identify patterns that others miss because they're looking at different data. They make connections that create opportunities because their minds contain relevant information from multiple disciplines. This approach requires discipline because valuable information is often less immediately engaging than entertaining information. Learning about supply chain logistics isn't as stimulating as watching celebrity drama. Studying historical economic patterns isn't as emotionally satisfying as following political controversies. Reading about psychological principles of influence isn't as exciting as consuming opinion content about current events. But the cumulative effect is remarkable. Over time, your mind becomes filled with information that actually helps you understand how the world works, how people behave, and how systems change. When important decisions arise, you have context that most people lack. When opportunities appear, you recognize them because you understand the patterns that create them. When challenges emerge, you respond effectively because you've studied how others successfully navigated similar situations. The ultimate realization is that information is not neutral. What you put into your mind determines what you're capable of thinking, understanding, and imagining. If you fill your mental space with shallow content, you'll develop shallow thinking. If you consume information designed to make you reactive, you'll become reactive. If you expose yourself to material that challenges your assumptions and expands your capabilities, you'll develop the intellectual tools necessary to build something significant. When you master the constant feeding of your mind with strategic information, you discover that learning becomes a competitive weapon rather than a leisure activity. Your mental capabilities compound over time, giving you increasing advantage over people who treat their minds like entertainment centers rather than strategic assets. You begin to see opportunities, understand patterns, and make connections that others miss because their minds are filled with different information. Number 10. Calculated risks as a driver of progress. You confuse safety with security. You believe that avoiding risk protects you from loss, but what you call safety is actually the guarantee of mediocrity. You fear failure so much that you avoid the very experiences that could transform your life. You seek certainty in an uncertain world, and your need for guarantees ensures that you'll never discover what you're actually capable of achieving. Risk is not the enemy of success. Risk avoidance is the enemy of success. Every significant achievement in history required someone to risk failure, rejection, loss, or ridicule. Every fortune was built by someone willing to bet everything on their ability to create something valuable. Every breakthrough came from someone who chose uncertainty over the comfort of predictable limitations. But there is a profound difference between calculated risk and reckless gambling. The strategic mind doesn't seek risk for its own sake. It seeks growth, and growth requires leaving the safety of what's known for the uncertainty of what's possible. Calculated risk means understanding the potential downsides, preparing for likely challenges, and ensuring that failure, while painful, won't be permanently destructive. Consider two entrepreneurs with the same business idea and similar resources. The first entrepreneur spends months researching every possible risk, analyzing every potential problem, and developing contingency plans for every scenario he can imagine. His detailed planning reduces his chances of catastrophic failure, but it also delays his entry into the market until competitors have claimed the best opportunities. The second entrepreneur conducts enough research to understand the major risks, develops plans for the most likely problems, and then launches before she feels completely ready. She knows that some challenges can only be understood by taking action, that some opportunities disappear while you're planning to pursue them, and that perfect information is an impossible standard that paralyzed more dreams than protected them. I once observed a real estate investor who built substantial wealth by consistently taking calculated risks that others avoided. When markets crashed and prices dropped, most investors retreated to safety and waited for certainty to return. This investor studied the fundamentals, identified properties in areas with strong long-term potential, and acquired assets while financing was difficult and competition was minimal. His approach wasn't reckless. He maintained cash reserves to survive extended downturns. He chose properties in locations with diverse economic bases rather than depending on single industries. He structured financing to avoid over-leveraging that could force sales during unfavorable market conditions. But within those carefully constructed boundaries, he was willing to act when others hesitated. Over multiple market cycles, his willingness to take calculated risks during uncertain periods generated returns that conservative investors could never achieve during stable periods. The key was his ability to distinguish between prudent caution and paralysis, disguised as wisdom. The shift occurs when you realize that the biggest risk is taking no risks. In a rapidly changing world, standing still is actually moving backward. While you're preserving what you have, others are building what you could have had. While you're avoiding potential losses, you're guaranteeing the loss of potential gains. This doesn't mean becoming reckless or abandoning reasonable precautions. It means understanding that perfect safety is an illusion, and that excessive caution often creates the very problems it's trying to avoid. The person who never risks rejection never builds meaningful relationships. The person who never risks financial loss never builds significant wealth. The person who never risks failure never discovers their true capabilities. Calculated risk requires developing what I call intelligent paranoia. You identify the worst-case scenarios that could result from any significant decision, but instead of using that analysis to avoid action, you use it to prepare for action. You create safeguards that limit potential downsides while preserving access to potential upsides. The practical application means establishing risk tolerance based on your current situation and long-term objectives rather than your emotional comfort level. If you're young with minimal financial obligations, your risk tolerance should be higher because you have time to recover from setbacks. If you have substantial assets and dependents, your risk should be carefully structured to preserve essential security while still allowing for growth. But the most important element involves understanding that timing often determines whether risks are calculated or reckless. Taking significant risks during personal or professional crises is usually unwise. Taking calculated risks when you're in a strong position with adequate resources and clear thinking allows you to pursue opportunities from a position of strength rather than desperation. This also means learning to recognize the difference between fear-based resistance and wisdom-based caution. Fear-based resistance feels emotional, creates elaborate justifications for inaction, and focuses on everything that could go wrong. Wisdom-based caution feels analytical, creates specific plans for managing identified risks, and focuses on how to pursue opportunities while minimizing unnecessary dangers. The most sophisticated practitioners develop systems for taking calculated risks consistently rather than avoiding them consistently. They allocate specific percentages of their time, money, and energy to ventures that could fail, but could also produce exceptional returns. They understand that portfolios of calculated risks, even when individual risks sometimes result in losses, generate superior long-term results compared to risk-free strategies. When you master calculated risk as a driver of progress, several things change in your life. You become more comfortable with uncertainty because you've learned to prepare for it rather than avoid it. You develop greater confidence because you've survived setbacks and learned that failure isn't fatal. You create more opportunities because you're willing to pursue possibilities that others are too cautious to explore. But the deepest change involves your relationship with your own potential. When you consistently take calculated risks, you discover capabilities you didn't know you possessed. You learn that you're more resilient, resourceful, and capable than you imagined. You realize that most limitations you accepted were self-imposed rather than objectively real. The ultimate insight is that calculated risk isn't about gambling with your future. It's about refusing to gamble with your potential. Every day you spend avoiding calculated risks is a day you bet that your current situation is better than anything you could create. Every opportunity you avoid because it isn't guaranteed is an opportunity you guarantee yourself will never experience. True security comes not from avoiding all risks but from developing the capability to navigate risks successfully. When you can take calculated risks, learn from the results, and adapt your approach based on new information, you become anti-fragile. Challenges make you stronger rather than weaker. Uncertainty becomes a source of opportunity rather than anxiety. Change becomes an advantage rather than a threat. Number 11. Focus on legacy instead of lifestyle. You measure success by what you can buy, but legacy is measured by what survives after you can't buy anything. You chase lifestyle upgrades that impress others today while neglecting to build systems that will generate value long after you're gone. You confuse having money with being wealthy, owning things with creating value, and living well with living meaningfully. Lifestyle is consumption. Legacy is creation. Lifestyle depletes resources to maintain appearances. Legacy multiplies resources to create permanence. Lifestyle depends on your continued effort to sustain it. Legacy operates independently of your presence, generates value while you sleep, and continues producing long after you're no longer able to participate. The distinction is fundamental, and the implications are profound. Every dollar you spend on lifestyle is a dollar that will never compound into future wealth. Every hour you invest in maintaining appearances is an hour not spent building something that could change the world. Every decision you make to impress others today is a decision that reduces your ability to impact generations you'll never meet. Think of two successful businessmen who earned similar incomes over their careers. The first used his earnings to fund an increasingly expensive lifestyle. Luxury cars, expensive homes, exclusive vacations, designer clothing, fine dining, private clubs. His social media showed a life of enviable experiences and impressive possessions. He felt successful because his lifestyle reflected his income level. The second used his earnings to purchase assets that generated additional income. Real estate that produced rental revenue, businesses that operated without his daily involvement, intellectual property that earned royalties, investments in companies that paid dividends. His lifestyle remained modest because he redirected resources toward building systems that would eventually make his lifestyle irrelevant. After 30 years, the first man required continuous high income to maintain his standard of living. His expensive lifestyle had become a trap that demanded he keep working at the same intensity to afford the life he had created. When health problems reduced his earning capacity, his lifestyle became unsustainable and his financial security disappeared. The second man had built income streams that exceeded his living expenses. His assets generated wealth whether he worked or not, whether he was healthy or sick, whether he was present or traveling. His modest lifestyle meant that his passive income provided complete financial freedom, and his assets continued growing even when he stepped back from active business involvement. The shift from lifestyle to legacy thinking changes every financial decision you make. Instead of asking, "Can I afford this?" you ask, "Will this asset generate future value?" Instead of evaluating purchases based on immediate gratification, you evaluate them based on long-term impact. Instead of spending to impress others, you invest to secure independence. This doesn't mean living like a monk or denying yourself all pleasures. It means understanding the difference between strategic spending that enhances your capability and wasteful spending that merely signals your success to others. A book that teaches valuable skills is an investment in your capability. A luxury watch that impresses colleagues is consumption that weakens your financial position. Legacy thinking also transforms how you approach work and career decisions. Instead of optimizing for immediate income, you optimize for learning experiences and network building that will compound over time. Instead of seeking jobs that pay the most today, you seek opportunities that teach you skills or connect you with people who will create future opportunities. The practical application means structuring your finances so that lifestyle expenses are covered by a percentage of your income, while the majority of your resources flow toward asset accumulation. Instead of increasing lifestyle expenses as income rises, you maintain modest living costs while directing additional earnings toward investments that will eventually make earned income unnecessary. This approach requires defeating the psychological trap of lifestyle inflation. As your income increases, social pressure and personal desire push you toward more expensive choices. Higher income feels like it should produce higher lifestyle, but this logic ensures that you'll never escape the need to generate high income. Legacy builders resist lifestyle inflation by focusing on the freedom that delayed gratification will eventually provide. They find satisfaction in growing net worth rather than growing expenses. They measure progress by asset accumulation rather than lifestyle upgrades. They derive status from independence rather than from expensive possessions. The most profound aspect of legacy thinking involves understanding that true wealth isn't about having enough money to buy anything you want. It's about building systems that make money irrelevant to your security and happiness. When your assets generate income that exceeds your needs, money becomes a tool for creating impact rather than a requirement for survival. This transformation changes your relationship with work from dependence to choice. You continue working because the work matters, not because you need the income. You pursue projects based on their potential to create value, not their ability to pay your bills. You make decisions based on their alignment with your vision, rather than their immediate financial benefits. Legacy thinking also influences how you approach relationships and opportunities. Instead of networking to advance your career, you build relationships that could create value for others. Instead of seeking partnerships that benefit you immediately, you create alliances that could generate mutual benefits for decades. But the deepest level involves recognizing that legacy isn't ultimately about money or assets. It's about building something that will continue creating value after you're gone. This could be a business that employs people and serves customers. It could be educational content that continues teaching long after you created it. It could be systems and institutions that solve problems for future generations. When you master the focus on legacy instead of lifestyle, you discover something remarkable. Life becomes more satisfying, not because you're depriving yourself of immediate pleasures, but because you're building toward permanent satisfaction. The temporary pleasure of lifestyle consumption can't compare to the deep satisfaction of creating something that will outlast your lifetime. Your daily choices align with your long-term vision. Your resources compound toward meaningful objectives. Your work creates lasting value rather than temporary income. Your impact extends beyond your presence. Your legacy becomes a gift to a future you'll never see but will always influence. Number 12, power of invisibility. You believe success requires recognition, but recognition makes you a target. You seek visibility because you confuse attention with achievement, fame with power, and public acknowledgement with private security. But every moment you spend in the spotlight is a moment you reveal your strategies to competitors, your weaknesses to enemies, and your assets to those who would take them from you. True power operates in shadows, not spotlights. It influences without appearing, controls without claiming credit, and shapes outcomes without revealing methods. The most powerful people in the world are not the ones giving interviews or accepting awards. They are the ones whose decisions affect millions of lives, while their names remain unknown to those same millions. Visibility creates vulnerability. When people can see what you own, they can calculate what you're worth stealing. When they can observe your methods, they can copy your strategies or develop countermeasures. When they know your location, they can find you. When they understand your motivations, they can manipulate you. Every piece of information you make public becomes a tool others can use against you. Consider the difference between the famous entrepreneur, whose net worth is constantly analyzed in media reports, and the invisible wealth builder, whose assets remain private. The famous entrepreneur faces constant speculation about his business decisions, criticism of his lifestyle choices, and attempts to pressure him through public opinion. Competitors study his moves, Regulators scrutinize his activities, and opportunists look for ways to benefit from his success. The invisible wealth builder makes decisions without public commentary, implements strategies without competitive interference, and builds assets without attracting attention from regulators, criminals, or social critics. His privacy protects his planning process. His anonymity enables unconventional approaches, and his invisibility allows him to operate according to his own timeline and priorities. I once studied a family that built tremendous wealth over multiple generations while maintaining almost complete anonymity. They never appeared in rich lists, never gave interviews about their business strategies, never attended public events that would associate them with their assets. Their companies operated successfully, their investments generated substantial returns, and their influence shaped entire industries, but their personal involvement remained invisible. This invisibility provided multiple advantages. Competitors couldn't study their methods or anticipate their moves. Criminals couldn't target them because they didn't know what there was to target. Regulators couldn't single them out because they weren't known for controversial practices. Social pressure couldn't influence their decisions because the public wasn't aware of their activities. The transformation begins when you realize that seeking attention is often incompatible with building something significant. Attention requires time and energy that could be directed toward productive activities. Public visibility creates obligations to maintain image and manage reputation. Fame generates distractions that reduce focus on important work. This doesn't mean becoming antisocial or avoiding all professional visibility. It means being strategic about when visibility serves your objectives and when privacy provides greater advantage. Public recognition might be valuable when you're launching a business that depends on personal branding. Privacy becomes essential when you're building wealth that could attract unwanted attention. The practical application involves creating structures that separate your public identity from your private assets. Your name might be associated with some business activities, while remaining disconnected from your most valuable investments. Your public lifestyle might project modest success, while your actual wealth remains completely private. This requires developing comfort with recognition that doesn't match your reality. People might underestimate your capabilities because they don't see your true resources. They might dismiss your potential because they don't understand your actual position. They might treat you as less important than you are because your importance isn't visible. But this invisibility becomes a strategic advantage. When people underestimate you, they reveal information they would hide from someone they perceived as powerful. When they don't recognize your resources, they don't position themselves to compete for opportunities you're pursuing. When they can't see your methods, they can't interfere with your plans. The most sophisticated practitioners create multiple layers of invisibility. Their ownership of assets is obscured through legal structures that make beneficial ownership difficult to determine. Their involvement in decisions is channeled through intermediaries who provide privacy and plausible deniability. Their physical presence is managed to avoid creating patterns that could be monitored or predicted. This approach extends beyond financial assets to include intellectual property, strategic relationships, and operational capabilities. The true sources of competitive advantage remain hidden, while public attention focuses on less important activities. Competitors waste time and resources trying to understand visible strategies, while the real advantages operate unseen. Advanced practitioners even use strategic visibility as a form of invisibility. They allow certain activities to receive attention while conducting their most important work in areas that generate no public interest. The visible activities serve as decoys that satisfy public curiosity while protecting private priorities. When you master the power of invisibility, you discover that anonymity is the ultimate luxury. You can make decisions based purely on strategic considerations without worrying about public reaction. You can take controversial positions without becoming a target for criticism. You can build unusual solutions without facing pressure to conform to conventional approaches. Your effectiveness increases because you're not spending time managing public image or responding to uninformed commentary. Your security improves because potential threats can't identify targets they don't know exist. Your flexibility expands because you can change direction without explaining yourself to stakeholders who don't understand your reasoning. But the most profound benefit is psychological freedom. When you're invisible, you escape the mental prison that comes with public identity. You don't measure success by public recognition because public recognition becomes irrelevant. You don't make decisions based on how they'll appear to others because others can't see them. You don't limit your choices to socially acceptable options because social acceptance doesn't determine your security. Invisibility allows you to operate as your authentic self rather than as the public persona that fame or visibility would require. You can pursue objectives that matter to you rather than objectives that would impress others. You can build something based on your values rather than on what would generate favorable publicity. The ultimate realization is that true power doesn't require recognition because it doesn't depend on opinion. When you control resources, influence systems, and shape outcomes through invisible means, other people's awareness of your power becomes completely irrelevant to your ability to exercise it. You win without anyone knowing a game was played. You succeed without anyone realizing there was a competition. You shape the world without the world knowing it was shaped. Number 13, true nature of wealth. You think wealth is about accumulating money, but money dies when you die. You believe success means having enough to buy whatever you want, but wanting things is the opposite of wealth. You measure financial progress by your net worth today, but wealth is measured by value creation that continues after today becomes irrelevant. Real wealth is not a number in an account. It's a system that generates value independently of your participation. It's not about having resources to spend. It's about creating resources that multiply without your effort. It's not about being rich enough to stop working. It's about building something so valuable that it continues working after you stop existing. The wealthy don't just have money, they have money-making machines. They don't just own assets, they own assets that create more assets. They don't just generate income, they create systems that generate income for others, taking a percentage of that income in exchange for providing the system. They understand that true wealth is not personal, it's structural. Consider the fundamental difference between earning $1 million and building something worth $1 million. If you earn $1 million, you have temporary access to resources that will eventually be consumed. The money provides lifestyle options, but doesn't change the underlying economic structure of your life. You're still dependent on continued earning to maintain financial security. If you build something worth $1 million that generates income, you've created what economists call productive capital. The asset produces value that can either be consumed or reinvested to make the asset more valuable. The income stream reduces your dependence on earned income. The asset itself becomes more valuable as the income stream grows more reliable and predictable. But even this level misses the deeper principle. The highest form of wealth creation involves building systems that become more valuable to others than they are to you. When you create something that others depend on, that improves their capabilities, that solves problems they cannot solve themselves, you've created wealth that transcends personal ownership. I once studied a man who built tremendous wealth by creating educational systems that taught practical skills to working professionals. His initial investment involved developing curriculum, recording instructional content, and creating delivery systems that could reach students globally. Once the system was operational, It generated revenue from every student who accessed the education, while requiring minimal ongoing investment from the creator. But the real wealth creation occurred as the system's scale expanded. The educational content became more valuable as more professionals used it, because network effects made the skills more widely recognized and therefore more valuable. The delivery infrastructure became more efficient as volume increased, reducing per-student costs while maintaining per-student revenue. The creator's involvement became less necessary as the system developed its own reputation and operational procedures. Within a decade, the system was generating substantial income for the creator, valuable skills for thousands of professionals, and economic benefits for employers who hired those professionals. The wealth creation extended far beyond the creator's personal financial gain, because the system improved productivity for entire industries. This illustrates the true nature of wealth. It's not zero-sum. Creating real wealth makes everyone involved better off. The creator benefits financially, the users benefit from improved capabilities, and the broader economy benefits from increased productivity. This kind of wealth creation can continue indefinitely because it's based on value generation rather than resource extraction. The shift from accumulating money to creating wealth systems changes everything about how you approach financial decisions. Instead of asking how much you can extract from any situation, you ask how much value you can create that others will pay to access. Instead of optimizing for immediate returns, you optimize for system improvements that will generate increasing returns over time. This requires thinking like an architect rather than a treasure hunter. Treasure hunters look for existing wealth they can claim. Architects design structures that create ongoing value. Treasure hunting might produce sudden windfalls, but architecture produces sustained abundance. The practical application means identifying problems you can solve better than existing solutions, then building systems that deliver those solutions efficiently and scalably. Instead of trading time for money, you invest time in building systems that trade solutions for money. Instead of seeking jobs that pay well, you create value that others will pay to access regardless of whether you're actively working. This approach requires patience because wealth systems take time to build and longer to optimize. It requires vision because you must see value creation opportunities that others miss. It requires discipline because you must invest resources in system building rather than consuming them immediately. But the most important requirement is understanding that wealth systems are ultimately about serving others profitably. The systems that generate the most sustainable wealth are systems that solve genuine problems for the most people in the most efficient ways. Selfish wealth extraction is temporary. Collaborative wealth creation is permanent. When you master the true nature of wealth, you realize that money becomes irrelevant to your security. Your wealth systems generate the resources you need while providing value to others. Your financial independence comes not from having accumulated enough money to last forever, but from having created systems that will generate resources forever. This transformation changes your relationship with work from necessity to choice. You continue developing wealth systems because the work is meaningful, not because you need the income. You pursue projects that could improve the systems, rather than projects that provide immediate financial benefits. Your legacy becomes automated. The wealth systems you create continue operating after you're gone, continuing to serve people, generate value, and contribute to economic productivity. Your influence extends beyond your lifetime because the systems you built continue solving problems and creating opportunities for future generations. The ultimate insight is that true wealth is not about having enough. It's about creating abundance that extends beyond yourself. When you build systems that generate value for others while providing security for you, you've transformed from someone who consumes wealth into someone who creates it. You become a source of prosperity rather than a drain on resources. You contribute to the world's total wealth rather than simply claiming your share of existing wealth. Number 14. Hidden rules of the elite. You follow the financial rules taught in schools, promoted in media, and recommended by advisors who work for institutions that profit from your compliance. You invest in mutual funds that generate fees for managers rather than wealth for investors. You seek mortgages on homes that appreciate for banks rather than equity for owners. You build careers in companies that create fortunes for shareholders rather than employees. Meanwhile, there exists a parallel financial system with different rules, different opportunities, and different outcomes. These hidden rules are not secret because of conspiracy or exclusion. They are hidden because they require capital, knowledge, and strategic thinking that most people never develop. They remain invisible because they operate through structures that most people never learn to recognize or access. The elite don't invest in the same instruments marketed to retail investors. They don't follow the same asset allocation strategies recommended by financial planners. They don't measure success by the same metrics used in popular financial education. They operate according to principles that prioritize control over growth, systems over securities, and influence over income. Consider how differently the wealthy approach real estate compared to typical homeowners. The average person buys a home as a residence that might appreciate over time. They focus on location, amenities, and monthly payment affordability. They view the property primarily as a place to live that might eventually provide some financial benefit. Elite investors approach real estate as a system for generating multiple income streams while providing tax advantages and inflation protection. They might purchase apartment buildings that generate rental income, shopping centers that produce lease payments, or development projects that create value through improvement and subdivision. They focus on cash flow, appreciation potential, tax implications, and strategic value within a broader portfolio. But the difference goes deeper than investment selection. Elite investors structure their real estate holding to maximize control and minimize personal liability. They use legal entities that separate ownership from personal assets, financing strategies that preserve capital for other opportunities, and tax planning that converts ordinary income into capital gains taxed at lower rates. I once observed a wealthy family that purchased a struggling retail business, not because they wanted to operate retail stores, but because the business owned real estate in prime locations that could be redeveloped for higher value uses. They improved the business operations enough to maintain cash flow, while obtaining entitlements for mixed-use development that would eventually replace the retail operations. The purchase price was justified by the retail business cash flow, but the real investment thesis was based on the redevelopment potential that other bidders hadn't recognized. Within 5 years, they had transformed the properties into mixed-use developments worth several times their initial investment, while generating substantially higher ongoing income. This illustrates a hidden rule. Elite investors often buy one asset to gain access to a different asset that provides the real opportunity. They purchase businesses to acquire their real estate, buy real estate to control development rights, acquire development rights to benefit from demographic trends, and position themselves to benefit from trends to influence the policies that shape those trends. The shift to operating by hidden rules requires developing a different relationship with investment opportunities. Instead of asking whether an investment will generate good returns, you ask whether it provides control over assets that could generate multiple types of value. Instead of measuring success by percentage returns, you measure success by strategic positioning for larger opportunities. This means learning to see investments in terms of systems rather than individual assets. A single rental property might generate modest cash flow, but a portfolio of rental properties might justify hiring professional management that reduces your involvement while improving operations. The management system then becomes an asset that could manage properties for other investors, generating additional income streams from your operational capabilities. The practical application requires building investment capability gradually rather than seeking immediate large returns. Elite investors often accept lower initial returns in exchange for greater control, better strategic positioning, or superior long-term potential. They prioritize investments that teach them about new markets, introduce them to valuable relationships, or provide access to better opportunities. This approach also involves understanding how tax law, legal structures, and financial instruments can be combined to create advantages that aren't available through conventional investment approaches. The wealthy use strategies that most people never learn because these strategies require minimum investment levels, specialized knowledge, or professional relationships that take years to develop. Advanced practitioners create their own investment opportunities rather than selecting from opportunities created by others. They identify market inefficiencies, structural problems, or demographic changes that will create value, then position themselves to capture that value through direct ownership rather than indirect investment. They also understand that the highest returns come from investments that improve over time, rather than investments that simply appreciate. Building a business that becomes more valuable as it grows is superior to buying assets that might increase in value. Creating intellectual property that generates ongoing royalties is better than investing in securities that produce dividends. When you begin operating by the hidden rules of elite investing, you realize that conventional financial advice is designed to make you a customer of financial services companies rather than a creator of independent wealth. You stop seeking investment products created by others and start creating investment opportunities for yourself. Your focus shifts from trying to pick winning investments to building systems that generate multiple types of value regardless of market conditions. You develop capabilities that allow you to create opportunities rather than hoping to identify them. You build networks that provide access to deals rather than relying on publicly available information. The ultimate insight is that elite financial rules are different because elite objectives are different. Most people invest to build retirement security or generate supplemental income. Elite investors invest to build influence, create legacy, and generate wealth that operates independently of their personal efforts. They don't just want enough money to be comfortable. They want to build systems that create abundance for others while providing complete autonomy for themselves. When you master the hidden rules, you discover that wealth building isn't about working harder or getting better investment returns. It's about operating in a different system with different rules that produce different outcomes. You stop competing for small opportunities within the retail financial system and start creating large opportunities within the wealth creation system. Number 15, final transformation. You have spent your life becoming visible, seeking approval, building reputation, and chasing recognition. But now you understand that true mastery requires the opposite transformation. The ultimate achievement is not being seen as powerful, but being so powerful that being seen becomes irrelevant. It is not commanding attention, but commanding reality while attention flows elsewhere. The final transformation occurs when you no longer need to be present for your influence to be felt, when your systems operate more effectively without your involvement than with it, when your impact grows stronger as your visibility diminishes. This is the paradox of ultimate success. The closer you get to absolute power, the less you need to appear powerful. Think of the difference between a king who rules through personal presence and authority and the architect who designed the kingdom's infrastructure. The king must constantly appear in public, make decisions, resolve disputes, and demonstrate his power to maintain control. His authority depends entirely on his continued ability to project strength and make his presence felt throughout the realm. The architect, long dead, continues to shape how millions of people live, work, and move through the spaces he designed. His influence operates through structures that guide behavior, systems that determine possibilities, and designs that influence decisions. His power is absolute because it's embedded in the reality that people navigate daily, yet he requires no recognition, no maintenance, and no presence to maintain that influence. I once studied a businessman who achieved this ultimate transformation during his lifetime. In the early years of his career, he worked tirelessly to build his reputation, establish his expertise, and gain recognition within his industry. He spoke at conferences, published articles, and positioned himself as a thought leader whose opinions shaped industry conversations. But as his wealth and influence grew, he began withdrawing from public visibility. He stopped giving interviews, declined speaking opportunities, and removed his name from the companies he controlled. Yet his influence within the industry continued expanding, because he had shifted from persuading people to adopt his ideas to creating systems that made his ideas inevitable. Instead of arguing for better industry standards, he built companies that could only succeed by exceeding existing standards, forcing competitors to improve or become irrelevant. Instead of promoting specific technologies, he acquired patents and resources that made certain technological developments unavoidable. Instead of lobbying for regulatory changes, he created business models that demonstrated superior approaches, leading regulators to adopt policies that supported his methods. Within a decade, his industry had transformed according to his vision, but few people could identify him as the source of that transformation. His companies operated successfully under professional management. His investments generated wealth without his daily involvement, and his influence shaped industry decisions without his participation in those decisions. This represents the ultimate achievement, shaping the world according to your vision while becoming completely free from the need to maintain, defend, or explain that vision. Your ideas become embedded in systems that operate independently. Your values become reflected in structures that outlast your lifetime. Your impact becomes permanent while your presence becomes optional. The final transformation requires letting go of ego satisfaction that comes from recognition and replacing it with deeper satisfaction that comes from effective results. Instead of wanting credit for your achievements, you want your achievements to continue without requiring credit. Instead of building a personal legacy, you build systems that create legacy automatically. This shift changes everything about how you approach projects, relationships, and opportunities. Instead of asking whether something will enhance your reputation, you ask whether it will improve systemic outcomes. Instead of optimizing for visibility, you optimize for sustainability. Instead of building platforms that showcase your capabilities, you build infrastructure that operates regardless of your continued involvement. The practical application means designing every significant project to succeed without your ongoing participation. Business ventures must develop management capabilities that exceed your own. Investment strategies must generate returns through systems rather than through your decision-making. Relationships must create value for others in ways that don't depend on your continued attention. This approach requires unprecedented discipline because it means sacrificing immediate ego gratification for long-term systematic impact. It means allowing others to receive credit for implementing your vision. It means watching your idea succeed while your contribution remains invisible. But the rewards justify the sacrifice. When your systems operate independently, you achieve complete freedom to pursue new challenges without abandoning previous achievements. When your influence operates automatically, you can direct your attention toward opportunities that others cannot access because they remain trapped in the maintenance of their existing success. The most profound aspect of this transformation involves transcending the need for external validation entirely. Your satisfaction comes from observing systematic improvement in areas you care about, regardless of whether that improvement gets attributed to your involvement. Your security comes from knowing that systems you built will continue creating value long after you're gone. When you achieve this final transformation, you realize that the highest form of power is the power to disappear. You can step away from any situation knowing that systems will continue operating, relationships will continue generating value, and influence will continue shaping outcomes. Your presence becomes a choice rather than a necessity. The ultimate insight is that true immortality comes not from being remembered, but from building systems that remember themselves through continued operation. Your ideas live through institutions that implement them. Your values survive through cultures that embody them. Your vision shapes reality through structures that manifest it. You become like the architect who designed the city. Long after your name is forgotten, people continue living, working, and thinking according to patterns you established. Your influence becomes woven into the fabric of reality itself, invisible but absolute, absent but omnipresent, forgotten but permanently embedded in how the world operates. This is the final transformation, from someone who seeks to leave a mark on the world to someone who becomes indistinguishable from the world they created. Your success becomes so complete that it no longer requires your participation. Your power becomes so absolute that it no longer needs your presence. Your influence becomes so embedded that it operates as naturally as gravity, as invisibly as time, and as permanently as the foundations upon which everything else is built. The moment you truly understand these principles, you will never see the world the same way again. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to gather intelligence while revealing nothing. Every decision transforms into a strategic calculation that serves objectives others cannot perceive. Every relationship gets evaluated through the lens of mutual value creation or elegant elimination. You are no longer the person who reacts to circumstances. You have become the person who creates the circumstances that others react to. You are no longer seeking your place within existing systems. You are building the systems that determine where others will find their place. This transformation happens quietly, almost imperceptibly, like a river that changes its course over decades, carving new channels through solid rock while appearing to flow peacefully on the surface. The landscape reshapes itself around your influence, yet observers see only the natural flow of water, never recognizing the immense power that moved mountains to create the path. Your presence in any room begins to shift the energy, not through force or performance, but through the gravitational pull of someone who operates from absolute internal authority. People sense something different about you, something they cannot name or define, but something that commands respect without demanding it. The financial principles I have shared become more than strategies. They become the architecture of a completely different existence. Money stops being something you chase and becomes something that flows toward the value you create. Wealth stops being about accumulation and transforms into a natural byproduct of systems that serve others while serving you. If you are ready to continue this journey of invisible transformation, to keep walking the path that separates those who follow from those who lead, then stay connected to this wisdom. Subscribe to receive the deeper teachings that will guide your complete metamorphosis from someone who hopes for change into someone who architects reality itself. The ancient kings are remembered for their crowns and conquests, but the wise remain eternal through the principles they embedded in the world, principles that continue shaping human behavior long after their names have been forgotten. Principles that operate with the quiet certainty of natural laws, invisible yet absolute.